Hey guys, and welcome back to another match preview prediction, and we have a semi-final to get into at the 2025 Indian Wells tournament. It is Holger Rune versus Daniil Medvedev, and we're going to be getting into the nitty-gritty and ultimately giving you guys our prediction on the match. Before we do get into it though, remember to hit that like button, do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Also remember to that notification bell so you get alerted to any new uploads. Okay, so this is a matchup that we haven't actually seen a lot in the past. They've only played each other 3 times, and the head-to-head is 2-1 in favour of Daniil Medvedev. The matches they've played against each other have... Well, I mean, there's only really one match to go upon, if I'm being honest, which was last year at Indian Wells. Medvedev won 7-5, 6-4. The other 2 matches were on clay, so I don't really want to look into that too much. Medvedev won in Rome in 2023, where he went on to win his title, of course, there as well, and didn't end up, and hasn't ended up even, winning a title since then, so it's been a title drought for him. For Holger Rune, in Monte Carlo, he beat Medvedev earlier that year in straight sets, 6-3, 6-4. So, look, I mean, the Indian Wells match, there's a little bit to go on there, but I think it's fair to say that Medvedev is playing, I'd say, slightly different tennis. And for Rune, I think he has so many different ways of playing. We could see, I would say, 3 or 4 different versions of Rune in this match. So it's a little bit hard sometimes to understand exactly which Rune is going to turn up. And I think he's in the process of figuring out exactly the type of style he wants to play in terms of his main style. And then, of course, the best players always have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, some even plan F. And, you can adapt, but you need to have a standard way that you want to play as an ideal. And then, obviously, you kind of work from that. I'm still not sure 100% he's there yet, but you can tell he's trying to work on it. So that's a positive sign. In terms of their route to the semi-final stage, so Rune has looked pretty good. He's only dropped the 2 sets, and against 2 opponents who have been playing some really good tennis recently. So beat Mute in the first round in straight sets, then Humbert, who, again, as I said, has been playing some good tennis and made some deep runs in a few of the tournaments recently. He managed to beat him in 3 sets, and then Tsitsipas, who he already had a 3-0 head-to-head with going into the match, he beat him in straight sets as well, 6-4, 6-4. And that was a good win because Tsitsipas is in really good form. And clearly, he is... Rune said after that, if you beat someone or get beaten by someone 3 times in a row, or they beat all the head-to-heads 3-love, then they say on tour that they're your dad or your daddy. So that's quite funny. And he was trying to avoid that fate against Griekspoor, who he had a losing head-to-head with at 2-0, I think 2-0. I don't want to say 2-love. 2-0, 2-0. And Rune managed to get the win over him really impressively as well, because he lost the first set 7-5. And, in the past, and maybe not just him, but a lot of players, they might put their head down and say, I've got a losing head-to-head against this guy and I'm losing again. But actually, he picked it up very nicely. 6-love, 6-3 the next 2 sets. Very, very comfortable and comprehensive. Definitely a lot of errors from the side of Griekspoor in the second and third sets, I have to say. And, Rune did play some really good tennis at times, but there was also some moments where I wouldn't say he was fortunate, but he maybe played a bit passive and managed to get... It went his way, let's just say, in terms of some of those points. But, he's playing with more confidence, which is what we need to see, and that's a real positive. For Medvedev, beat Bu, Mikkelsen, Tommy Paul and Feast, and the Feast match was a fantastic match to watch. Feast was actually a break-up in that deciding set. Medvedev pulled it back, had multiple match points in the tiebreaker, didn't manage to take them until eventually at 9-7 he took the match, and Feast really should have won that point as a serve volley. And the first volley was really good. I think he had thought that he'd won the point. Medvedev somehow managed to dig it out, and the second volley he just wasn't really in position, so it ballooned off his racket long. But Medvedev showed some real grit and determination to get over the line there. So how will this one play out? Well, It's an interesting one because these courts, in my opinion, shouldn't actually really be suited that much to Medvedev's game. It's a slow hard court, which has a lot for the players that play with very heavy topspin, that hit a really heavy ball. That's not really Medvedev's game. His game is about hitting very flat penetrating ground strokes through the court, and it's about rushing his opponents, making sure that he doesn't really give them much to work with, and then being that octopus, that backball that gets everything back. And he's mainly a counterpuncher who uses the opponent's pace to deflects really effectively by changing direction. I mean, look, it's very impressive that his record is what it is at Indian Wells, because, as I said, I just don't think it is the best suited surface for him. But he's made it work, and you can see he plays a bit more topspin on the forehand at Indian Wells, and he's able to grind those longer points. So the physicality's there, so that's the real positive in these types of conditions, and that's why maybe he's had some success on clay as well. The physicality's there, right? The physicality's there. He also doesn't mind taking the ball at shoulder height. He is happy to take the ball. I think he'd rather take it shoulder height than ankle height, so that's a real positive, and he's going to get that in Indian Wells and at the kind of higher bouncing courts like the clay tournaments that he ends up playing very, very soon. So yeah, I mean, look, he's been very good on this surface in these conditions. For Rune, I mean, this is really, for me, this should be a tournament that he plays well on. He likes playing on clay, we know that, and yes, he can play well on fast courts and on grass, and on, he's got a very diverse game. But what I would say is that probably his best tennis comes normally on these types of surfaces. He can hit with high topspin on the forehand side and backhand, and he defends well. He comes forward to the net well and volleys, so he has an added dimension that where he can finish off points when they start getting into that grind, where he wants to finish on the point. If he doesn't feel like he can really hit through the court, hit through his opponent, then he has that option. He's got the drop shot as well, and the lob, which is almost reminiscent of Alcaraz. It's not quite as good, but it's up there as a very effective tool. The serve, he hits a really good kick serve, if I'm being honest. And that's something that actually Medvedev doesn't hit a lot of. He hits a lot of slice serves, so he doesn't really get as much purchase off his serve, I would say, on this surface. Whereas I feel like for Rune, he does, because he likes to hit with a lot of spin on his serve generally. So that's a real positive as well. In terms of how it's going to play out, well, I think tactically, Rune has to be quite proactive. I've seen Medvedev standing very far back as usual, especially in Indian Wells, I guess, with the higher bouncing courts. And one thing that feasted really well against Medvedev, which I think Rune should try to emulate, and I think he can, because they're relatively similar players, I would say. Not quite, there's still some differences, but they have some similarities, Feast and Rune, is one, I think he needs to obviously utilise the serve out wide and come forward to volley when he feels it's appropriate and he feels he's hit a good enough serve and the variety's there and he's not being predictable. And two, I think he needs to drag Medvedev forward to the net, and that could be with a drop shot, it could be with just a short forehand or short backhand slice. We've seen lots of players do it in the past. Nadal did it against Medvedev at the Australian Open in 2022 in the final. Nadal was losing, and then he changed tactics and started utilising some more of those crafty type of tactics, and Medvedev is just not the most natural at the net, even though I like to call him Netvedev at times, because sometimes we do see that unorthodox net play, which actually can be effective at times. It's definitely not where he wants to be, right? He doesn't want to be in the forecourt. That's the thing. So I think he just needs to be very, very careful, Rune, about when he does bring Medvedev forward. It has to be the type of shot that he's not just going to get picked off with. If he brings Medvedev to the net and Medvedev's just hitting a winner off that ball, then it's pointless. So it's either going to be a solid enough drop shot or a low enough slice, maybe with an angle, to drag Medvedev forward, and then he can pick him off at the net, Rune, because he's got good anticipation, very good athleticism. He anticipates well, so he'll be able to kind of find those angles and really work around Medvedev in the net. That's going to be a real big key, I think, for me. Because from the back of the court, I think Medvedev will have the edge. As the rallies get longer, I feel like Medvedev will be the one who will cause the most damage. And, Rune needs to be he needs to be efficient with his shot selection, I think, is the main thing here. Because if he goes to the drop shot too soon or goes down the line too soon, drags Medvedev forward too soon, then those are all going to come back and bite him. But he has the variety of shots that actually he should be able to find different ways of winning points against Medvedev and make him really think and second guess what he's going to do. So that's going to be key. The serve return dynamics is always important, but I think on these slower courts we're going to see a lot of returns in play. And for Medvedev, I think the serve is always important for him to get some free points because he doesn't want to be grinding every single point, especially on his serve as well. So that'll be key to have a look at. Rune's returning has at times in the past flattered to deceive, if I'm being honest. And I think we need to see a good returning performance from Rune in this match for him to really go on and win it. Medvedev, I think, is a slight favourite given his Indian Wells track record. I'm going to go against the grain because I think a lot of people will pick Medvedev, and I love Medvedev. I do. I love pretty much all the players, to be fair, on tour. I have a feeling that Holger Rune, this might be the catalyst for him to push on, not just this season, but maybe for a period of his career. He needs these types of wins. He needs these big stages, these confidence boosters, and I think he's going to get it against Medvedev. Medvedev played a really tough match against Feast. I know it's only 3 sets, but the fact that Feast managed to push him, I think Rune isn't quite as explosive off the forehand, for example, as Feast, but I would argue he's got maybe a better serve, better hands in the net, and a better backhand. So there's a lot of positives for him to go upon Rune. I think Rune needs to be a bit brave at times as well, and that doesn't mean hitting lines, but it means trying to be the one dictating in the points. Because if he's not, and Medvedev's dictating, then that's not a great place to be. Even though Rune is a good defender, I don't think his shot tolerance is as good as Medvedev's, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Rune in 3 sets and 3 very hard-fought sets. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks very much, guys. Stay safe and well. We'll see you in the next video.